Welcome to Football Letter Live. This week we welcome Penn State football letterman Mark Rubin and Central Iowa chapter president Herb Meyer. We'll look back at last week's win over Indiana, share more about how you can be involved with the Alumni Association, and look to Saturday's big matchup with Iowa. If you're a Penn Stater, you belong in the Alumni Association. And if you love Penn State, you're in the right place. This is Football Letter Live. Welcome into Football Letter Live. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. Mark Rubin is here tonight. We're going to talk with him. The Central Iowa chapter president, Herb Meyer, is going to join us in just a couple minutes. But we are headed on the road this weekend to Iowa City with our 5-0 record, looking to go 1-0 once again this week as we head into Iowa to face the number 3 Hawkeyes. We expect a great turnout on Friday night. We're going to talk to Herb in just a couple minutes about the Iowa chapter and their mixer that they're planning for us down there. The Back Pocket Brewing Company is the place to be at 7 o'clock tomorrow night there in Coralville, Iowa, right outside Iowa City. And then before the game, everyone's going to want to join us at Dwayne Banks Park, the baseball stadium there on the campus of the University of Iowa, for the Alumni Association's pep rally to get ready for the big win that we're going to bring home to Happy Valley over the Iowa Hawkeyes. You can get more information about those events in the comments on Zoom, in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube. We're looking forward to the trip. We fly out early tomorrow morning and can't wait to get there. And look, everyone at the Alumni Association is excited about this upcoming matchup with Iowa. We had staff from the Penn Stater magazine down in the basement of the Hintz Family Alumni Center going back into the archives, and they were able to find some great photos and some great images down there from the 1971 game against Iowa in Iowa City, a big 44-14 win over the Hawkeyes. Again, shout out to Mark Kaufman and Nick Sloff on the Penn Stater magazine team for going down there and digging into the archives for some great footage from that 71 game. I'm joined as always tonight by my co-host, John Petishnock. John, how are things going with you tonight?
Things are going well as always. Of course, head into another super exciting weekend with Penn State football. Again, coming off another big weekend last week against Indiana with the stripe out. I think, the whiteout is probably at the top of the list, but the stripe out is legit. Like, it's also a big game. And so that was just nice to have a 4-game home stretch at Beaver Stadium. I think, when you've got a month to play at home, I think that kind of sets you up for, really preparing yourself to go on the road. After starting the season at Wisconsin, I think Penn State deserved to have that 4-game stretch at home, 5-0, number 4 in the polls. And, this is a big weekend, of course, top 5 matchup with Iowa. And so I think it also shows how deep the Big Ten Conference is this year. I think it's wide open even more than usual. And so, big shout out to Mark Kaufman and Nick Sloff at the Penn Stater magazine staff for finding those slides. That was, 1971 44-14 win. That was, early years of Capoletti's career, and just a lot of big moments in that game for us. And then, of course, these are the highlights that we're seeing from last weekend against Indiana, the 4th straight week of a crowd of more than 105,000. And I mean, you can see when you've got, the team coming out, the most electric team entrance in college football, you've got the fireworks, you've got the blue band and the Lionettes and the cheerleaders, the Nittany Lion, who just, elevate game day like you couldn't believe. And so, look, it's fun in Happy Valley. Yeah, there's no denying it. So hopefully it'll continue.
John, you touched on it. The depth of the Big Ten is really the story of the early season, right? We have 4 teams in the top 12. The Big Ten East is back, right? Michigan State in the top 25, Michigan in the top 10. But we're going on the road to a tough Big Ten West team, right? And number 3, Iowa. It's the first time that two top 5 Big Ten teams have faced off against each other during the regular season since 1997, a Thanksgiving weekend game between Ohio State and Michigan that year. 23 years, almost 24 years since two top 5 Big Ten teams have played against each other. So big showdown, but it's also an indicator that the Big Ten is right up there with among the toughest conferences in the country.
Yeah, I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but whoever wins the Big Ten could end up losing a game or two in the regular season. It's not like in years before where,
Right.
if 1 or 2 games knocks you out. And so, yeah, I don't think anyone expected Michigan State, at least at this point in the season, to be as.
Yep, we're having some technical difficulties hearing John there, but I couldn't agree more. It's not, the Big Ten is not like the Pac-12 or the Big 12, right? Where you have to run the gauntlet and go undefeated to get into the playoff, right? I think a one-loss team from the Big Ten makes the playoff this year, like it has in years past. But John, we have a great show lined up here today. Folks who are tuning in, drop your questions in the comments on YouTube and on Facebook. Share this information out. Make sure you're sharing it on your platforms. That's the best way to get entered into our prize pack. Those prize packs have been flying out of the Hintz Family Alumni Center, and maybe there's one going out to you this week if you comment or ask a question of one of our guests. But John, let's jump. Well, first of all, we still have a couple highlights from this weekend's game that you want to jump into.
Well, yeah, looking at the game against Indiana, I think, you see, Sean Clifford continued to develop his poise is right there. And so, look, you talked about how deep the Big Ten is this year, going on the road at Kinnick Stadium, playing, in Columbus and some other tough places. Like, you want a 5th-year senior starting quarterback, and Penn State has that in Sean Clifford. I think the offense is where Mike Yurcich expected it to be, a little faster than maybe some folks expected, at least outside the program. But yeah, defense is portable. And when you've got a defense like Penn State's, you can go anywhere. Certainly, the stripe out against Indiana, you saw how good that defense is. I mean, to shut out Indiana, to shut out anybody. I mean, people were talking about this, even to shut out an FCS team is difficult, let alone an FBS team. I saw a stat that the football team shared that was just jaw-dropping, was the adjective I used. In 15 red zone possessions, Penn State's defense has allowed 0 points.
Wow.
Like, that isn't, I mean, that would be a great stat if you held, teams to a field goal in that many times, and to hold them without any points is just, I mean, it's also kind of, it's debilitating to the offense to know that you're going to drive down, you expect to at least get 3 points, and you walk off with nothing time and again. And so, and obviously that also provides an incredible boost to the offense. And, James Franklin talks about it a lot of time, playing complementary football, and certainly they're doing that thus far this season.
Absolutely. John, also a great opportunity to honor the Alumni Council on the field at the Indiana game. Close to 75 of our top volunteers were out there to be recognized. These are the folks who give of their time, talent, and treasure to the Alumni Association, so we can deliver the program, services, and communications that Penn State alumni deserve. And so a shout out to our Alumni Council and all those folks who were able to join us on the field during the Indiana game.
Yeah, so, it was just.
Go ahead.
No, it was just a good weekend all around. I mean, anytime you can get, Penn Staters together in Happy Valley, it's going to be a good time.
Absolutely. Well, hey, speaking of a good time, we're going to have a good time down in Iowa City. And part of that good time is going to be put on by our good friend, Herb Meyer. Herb is the president of the Central Iowa chapter. He's a class of 1973 from Penn State. They are the Central Iowa chapter is a 2020 Lion level group of distinction recipient. They're going to host the Mixer Friday night at the Back Pocket Brewery. Welcome to Football Letter Live, Herb Meyer. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Paul. Thank you. Hi, John.
Hey, Herb.
Herb, we always enjoy hearing about why alumni are passionate about Penn State. So what's your Penn State story? How did you become a Nittany Lion?
Well, I guess I'm a first-generation college person. First one to go to college from my generation, my family. And I guess I chose Penn State because mostly because other high school classmates were applying there and going there, so it felt comfortable with other people. And they're Commonwealth campuses. I'm from Schuylkill County in Pennsylvania, and there's a campus down in Schuylkill Haven. So you could commute there and live at home, which helped on the expenses a lot. It also eased you into the college life, I think, a lot. You didn't have a big campus to try and figure out. In fact, I think at that time, Schuylkill had 2 buildings, so it didn't take much to find your classrooms.
Yeah, amazing. Shout out to the Skooks who are watching. All of you down in Schuylkill County. I married a Schuylkill County girl. My wife is from Tamaqua. I grew up in Hazleton, and we know how important those Northeast campuses are to those communities that they serve.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to be able to go to those campuses.
Well, Herb, as you ventured forward with your educational experience at Penn State, what were some of the other, activities or experiences that kind of made Penn State start to feel like home for you?
Well, probably, like I said, when at the Schuylkill campus, just being among people that were familiar with I was familiar with, and being Schuylkill County, you had some commonality with everybody that was there, because just being in that cold region area, everybody knew that. I think part of it was the football team was getting national attention at that time. That helped to get me very involved, passionate about the team. And Penn State gave me an opportunity to learn so I think those things helped to make me feel pretty good about Penn State and very passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing rallies Pennsylvanians like Penn State football. 68, 69, 70 season, right? Joe Paterno had people getting really excited, starting to believe about Penn State being a national program. 71, John mentioned earlier. John Capoletti was doing his thing down here. So a lot of excitement being built while you were a student here at Penn State. And then you leave Penn State and you go off to start your career and make your way to being the president of the Central Iowa chapter. How do you keep Penn Staters connected year-round through your chapter?
Well, we have probably an annual meeting or an annual picnic, and which is our student send-off, and also our annual meeting. And of course, we have football game watches. I think that helps to connect a lot of people with it, with our chapter. During the pandemic, it's been a little difficult, of course, with the no in-person, but we held some Zoom activities like a trivia night and a game night. We did our football game watches. When we did those, the board members, each one of us took an opportunity each game, and we would do some video. We'd do a tailgate before the game on Zoom and show some kind of a video. Sometimes it was the Blue Band. Sometimes, I think once we did a thing on Adam Talaferro and his comeback.
Right.
And then you would come up with some facts and figures about the opponent and have a little trivia fun with that. We also have one thing a new event we had last year was for St. Patrick's Day. We did a State Patties Day. So hopefully we can keep that going as an annual event. That would be a lot of fun. So I think with a lot of those events, we've kept people connected. And like you said before, Paul, one thing we're proud of is that for 2018, 19, and 2020, we've been a Lion level group of distinction. So we're very proud of that, to get to that level.
So Herb, you mentioned football. Let's stick with football. When Penn State comes to town, and we've been coming to town a lot.
Yeah, I think we dropped John there for a second, but as John was saying, look, Penn State football has almost made it a routine to come out to Iowa year after year. What can fans who are coming to town expect, and how long does it take you to plan for when the Nittany Lions arrive in Iowa City?
Well, I'd say in past years, we probably started about 6 months before the game to get everything together. For this one, with the pandemic, we didn't know if we were even going to have one. And so we probably put this one together in about 2 or 3 months, I'd guess. But luckily, Back Pocket was still available coming out of the pandemic a little bit. So that helped. Plus the 2 years that we've already done it helped us with the planning and ideas that we usually have. So that helped a lot in our planning. A little rough this time coming out of it, but so
yeah, Back Pocket's a great location. It's out there in Coralville. Don't let the city name scare you. Coralville is almost like a neighborhood of Iowa City. It's right next to Iowa City. You could still walk to the stadium from those hotels that are out there. But it's a great location because of the hotels that are there. A lot of Penn Staters happen to stay in those hotels. So check out what the Iowa chapter, the Central Iowa chapter, is doing tomorrow night. If you're going to be in Iowa City, you're going to want to check out their event.
So Herb, when Penn Staters come to town and you're having these events and you're meeting Penn Staters maybe for the first time, what's your message to them, and kind of how is this an opportunity for your chapter, to get more members or just kind of raise a little bit more awareness about what you're doing?
Well, it's a good opportunity to show them Iowa, I think, too, and let them know, we're not all farming, but I mean, that's obviously a great part of it. But there's a lot to do in Iowa other than, but meeting the people for the first time, just letting them know we're here, we're available to help them out, and just having that we have a lot of fun times with our chapter and the events that we have going on. So
yeah, it's a great connecting point for alumni that live in the state of Iowa. It's a great connecting point for all of our alumni that live close to our almost 285 affiliate groups. Herb, we know you're looking forward to the game on Saturday. What's your prediction? What do you expect to see on the field?
Well, I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. Obviously, both defenses are very strong, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of scoring. And probably field position is going to play a big part of it in that.
Yeah.
And but I think Penn State's going to come out on top, probably a 17-10, a 13-10 score, probably somewhere around there. I don't think we're going to see too much more than that. But yeah, but Penn State's going to win definitely.
Herb, we're so grateful for all you do for the Alumni Association and all you do for Penn Staters who live in Iowa. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thanks for everything.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Herb.
It was great being on.
Appreciate it.
So Herb is looking for a defensive struggle, John, 13-10.
I mean, he's probably not going to be wrong. I think, was it last time it was 17-12? There was the 6-4 game that we won't talk about, but yeah, defensive.
I don't know. We keep saying we're never going to talk about it. We keep bringing it up.
But no, I mean, that's what you would expect. And look, if it's going to be a defensive game, Penn State's, well situated with, if, they've got the number 3 national scoring defense. Yeah. Iowa happens to be number 2. Penn State would probably be number 2, if not number 1, if not for the 2 late touchdowns from Villanova that came against, second and third team. And so, yeah, you've got the second and third ranked national defenses going at it Saturday.
Absolutely. And look, Herb hit the nail on the head. It's going to be a field position game. I like the Jordan Stout's on our team if we have to flip the field.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we got a really nice photo of Jordan at practice the other week. We kind of made a little bit of a joke saying, if you had hair like him, you'd be smiling too. But there's a lot. I mean, he's the premier kicking specialist in the country. And so I think sometimes it's easy to take that for granted, not just the punting, but even the kickoffs. To know that your opponent is going to start at the 25 on every kickoff, that's comforting. If it's probably the right word for it, but it's important not to take it for granted.
Well, make sure that you're dropping your predictions in the comments. If you have a question for our next guest, put those questions in the comments. But you're watching Football Letter Live. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm here with John Petishnock. John, why don't you bring in our next guest?
Yeah, next guest, Mark Rubin, Letterman wide receiver and defensive back from 2004 2008, had one of the most memorable plays, I said in recent Penn State history, maybe like in all-time Penn State history, forcing the fumble at Ohio State in 2008 that propelled the Nittany Lions to a win in that game and also to a Big Ten championship. Started his career as a wide receiver, transferred to the other side of the ball, or moved to the other side of the ball is a better way to say it. And we're going to talk to him about that, kind of like that selfless behavior that you have at Penn State.
Yeah, John's talking about that all too often story when you come to Penn State, right? How many guys get recruited to play on the offense and end up being defensive stars, right? But welcome Mark Rubin to Football Letter Live.
Hey, Mark.
Paul and John, how are you doing?
We're doing well. We're thrilled that you're joining us tonight, so appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, can you kind of talk about your journey to Penn State? You know, what attracted you to this school, and you know, kind of just, you know, how did you end up being a student athlete at Penn State?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it wasn't too complicated. I mean, coming out of high school, I was looking for athlete football and elite athletics, and that's what Penn State had. I mean, having a football stadium that had 110,000 people certainly helped too. But no, I mean, I was looking for a place where I could strive athletically, I could strive academically, and I could set myself up for success after football and after college, and that's what Penn State had. And you know, again, I mean, that's when Coach Paterno was there, and having the coach with the most wins ever in college football was certainly pretty helpful too.
Absolutely. And boy, success, you found success on the field. You're a member of the 2005 and the 2008 team. You're one of the only handful of Penn Staters that are two-time Big Ten champions, right? Talk a little bit about what distinguished those two teams. Were there similarities, or were there different, did each of those championship teams take on different personalities?
Yeah, you know, I mean, thinking back on it, I think with special teams, they need to have a little something extra, a little chip on their shoulder. And I think with those teams in 2005, 2008, before those Big Ten championships, there were some down years at Penn State, you know, 04, 03, 02. I mean, didn't make bowl games. So the offseason in college football, when you're not at a bowl game, I mean, you're doing offseason conditioning in December in state college, working outside, running in the snow. So that's not what you want to be doing. You want to be going to bowl games, playing in Pasadena, playing in Miami. So I think those teams had the extra chip on their shoulder of they experienced how much losing sucks, and they committed to not letting that happen. So with that, I mean, you had both those years had just very strong senior classes that wanted to go out as champions, wanted to compete for national titles, and that's what both those teams did.
So talking about a reference the 2008 game in the intro, everyone knows the scene. Trailing in the fourth quarter, you break through, you force a fumble of Terrell Pryor, Navarro Bowman recovers, goes down for the go-ahead score. Can you take us through that play and kind of how you saw it develop for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, that was just a special game all around. I mean, I remember that, you know, again, you come to Penn State for games like that. To be the best, you have to beat the best. And we wanted to compete for a national title. I mean, I remember in pregame warm-up, LeBron James was on the Ohio State sideline. I mean, that's how big that, I mean, everyone that could have been at that game was there. So, I mean, we knew it was going to be a big game. We knew it was just going to be, we had to play well and execute. So with the Terrell Pryor fumble, I mean, it was 3rd and 1, you know, kind of no real secret. He was a scrambling mobile quarterback. And, you know, just like every play, just focus on doing your job, doing your role, taking care of what you can focus on. So, you know, I had outside contain, and that's what I was focusing on. He tried to bounce to the outside, and that was my role.
You know, then on the ensuing drive, starting quarterback Darrell Clark was out with an injury. Pat Devlin comes in and scores the game-winning touchdown on a quarterback sneak. Take us through the emotions that you were feeling. I know you're going to say, I was just doing my job. I had outside contain, right? But doing your job caused the fumble that led to the game-winning drive. Talk a little bit about kind of your emotions during that drive and after the game.
You know, so during the drive, that's what's I guess funny is, some people don't realize, like, when you're on defense and then you go on the sideline, it's not like you're like watching the game or like seeing what's going on. It's like you're game planning, you're talking to the coaches in the skybox, you're, making adjustments for the next drive. So it wasn't really a lot of like, we just got the ball back. I mean, you expect your team to go down and score every time. So I mean, I figured we got a fumble, we got the ball back. I mean, every time Penn State got the ball, I expected them to go down and score, and that's what they did. I mean, it helped just the talent on that team. I mean, Daryl Clark goes down, we got Pat Devlin. I mean, two top elite quarterbacks. I mean, it was a luxury to have a backup quarterback like Pat Devlin who could come in. I mean, for some guys, that's too big of a game for him, too big of a situation. But he stepped up, drove the team down, and we got points.
Yeah, and also doing your job included a career high 11 tackles in that game. How were you so keyed into what the Buckeye defense or the Buckeye offense was doing that night?
It's funny. Actually, the game was one day before my birthday, so almost that's just how the schedule aligned. October 24th is my birthday, so it's coming up this month as well. But the Ohio State game was October 23rd. So I had a lot of family in the stands. I mean, definitely amped up. I mean, a lot of it was just a game plan type of thing as well. I'm a big box, strong safety. Ohio State, that year, Beanie Wells, big kind of physical team. They ran the ball a lot. Again, that was just kind of the game plan matchup. But again, I mean, it just goes back to preparation, whole coaching staff, Tom Bradley. I mean, he put us in the right spot. So, I mean, you focus and you prepare the whole offseason. I mean, literally the entire year for these games. And you have, 10 games to play, to have fun. But I mean, you're literally preparing for the rest of the year for these games. So, I mean, once the games come, it's just time to have fun and execute.
I'm reminded we had Jordan Hyman, the author of the Game of Your Life, on a previous show. I would think if there's a Mark Rubin chapter in the second edition of that book, it's this Ohio State game that would be the game of your life. Mark, we hear Letterman talk a lot about leadership, and for good reason, right? We've mentioned Navarro Bowman, we've mentioned Daryl Clark already in the conversation. How would you describe the leadership at Penn State during the time you were playing, both amongst the coaches and the players that you played with?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm fortunate and thankful to go to Penn State and play for Coach Paterno. I mean, just the legacy that he had, the success, the results. I mean, just leading by example year after year after year. I mean, you see it in business, you see it with teams. People take shortcuts for success in the near term at the sacrifice of the long term. But I mean, to have success for 40, 50 years, to win 400 games, I mean, it just proves he had the life lessons. He knew to get the right support staff around him. He knew to get the right players around him. And I mean, and then it just trickled down to the players that we had. I mean, you talk about the Big Ten championship teams. 2005, we have Michael Robinson, Paul Posluszny, Alan Zamitis. I mean, those are probably some of the best men, some of the best leaders that Penn State has ever seen. They've all gone on to do amazing things after football. So again, it started with Joe Paterno. It just trickled all the way down to every single player on the team.
Yeah, and you talk about leadership and kind of like making sacrifices. You started as a receiver, moved not only positions, but moved to the other side of the balls as a safety. Can you just kind of talk our fans through what prompted the change and maybe what was the most challenging aspect of that?
Yeah, so I mean, so again, that's the thing. Like in high school, most, just about every college player plays multiple positions: offense, defense, special teams. So in high school, I played safety as well. And then in college, started as a receiver. My freshman year, started the season, played the full season. Sophomore year, broke my ankle, redshirted, had to rehab the whole season, took a redshirt year. And then my third year at Penn State, we were fortunate to get some great recruits. We got Derek Williams, we got Justin King. Actually, Deion Butler made the opposite switch. He came in as a corner and moved to wide receiver. And then Coach Paterno just called me into his office and told me there was an opportunity, and he thought a good a good opportunity for me to switch to safety. And once he told me that, I just committed to it, and I was all for it.
It's definitely a familiar story that we hear amongst Penn Staters. That you're probably our third guest who's talked about moving from receiver to cornerback or to safety for the good of the team, right? And so that's something that decade after decade of Penn State football player, there are examples of that. I think back from my time, Gary Brown out of Williamsport started off as a running back, ended up as a safety. But it's kind of the attitude that we're going to do whatever it takes for this team to win. We're going to do whatever it takes to get on the field and contribute. And in some cases, right, coach came to them and said, you have a shot to play at the next level on this side of the ball, and that's why we're making this decision.
Sure. So that was the thing as well. In 2000, not in 2000, but I played with Levi Brown as well, who came to Penn State as a defensive end, and Coach Paterno thought he should switch to offensive line. Ended up having a great career, being a top five pick. So I mean, you trust coach, you trust Joe, you trust the coaching staff, and you realize that you're there to be a part of the team and be part of something bigger than yourself. So I mean, he called me into his office. He told me it was a good opportunity for me. I always remember when he called me into his office, he told me I reminded him of the young fellow from Stanford that went on to play for Tampa Bay. So again, I mean, this was mid 2000s, and it took me a while to figure out he was speaking of John Lynch. Obviously, I knew he played for Tampa Bay, but I didn't even realize he played for Stanford back in the 80s or early 90s. So I mean, again, he's been around the game for 50 years. When he makes a suggestion, he's usually right. And it's probably a good idea to listen to him.
Rubin, you got a shot to play at the next level.
Exactly. Yep.
We keep talking about Joe. Let's stick with that for a second. I know Letterman come on here all the time, and they share their favorite Coach Paterno stories. I'm sure you have dozens. What one sticks out in your mind?
I mean, I always remember before we were going to play Ohio State. So this would have been 2005, the Big Ten championship season. Penn State, Ohio State was a home game. So he calls us, we have obviously, a quick team meeting before the game, before we kind of go through warm-ups and the whole stretch, routine there. Calls us in, we're all jacked up, 18, 19, guys about to play, Ohio State, prime time national TV coverage. And he sits us down thinking we're going to get this whole long speech. And he tells us how he was thinking about what to tell the team. He was talking with his wife, Sue, and walking over to the stadium. And he said Sue actually told him what to tell us. And that was to get a haircut, to tell us that he loves us, and to fight like dogs. And that was it. And go out, beat their butts, and let's go do this thing. So, I mean, it's funny because at the time I didn't really, I think, appreciate it as much now. But thinking back, I mean, that's what you want. I mean, there's no secret sauce or formula. Just knowing that the people you're with, that you love them, care about them, get a haircut, always helps to look good. And then fight like dogs, no matter what, every play, every series, just fight. And that's what we did. And we came out with the W.
Well, you talk about life lessons. You mentioned some Letterman who went on to do, great things after playing for Penn State. Certainly you're in that category. What were some of the life lessons that you learned at Penn State that prepared you not only for college, but, for after football?
Again, I mean, I guess that kind of goes back to the very first question we were talking about, is why I chose Penn State is because you kind of look, when you're reviewing colleges and trying to decide where to go, it's, you look and see what guys do after college and after they leave at Penn State. And I knew I wanted to get into finance and get into business. And I saw these guys like a John Schaefer or a Matt Johnson or a Henry Atkins. I mean, guys that would come to college, win a national championship, and then go work on Wall Street and work in business and do real estate. So Penn State prepared them to succeed at the next level. So I thought just coming to Penn State, I would have the foundation, I would have the network, I'll be able to learn from them, have the support staff, and hopefully replicate the success that they had on and off the field.
Mark, walk us through the path after Penn State. I can see your Rams jersey up on the wall there. There was a stop in the NFL. Talk about how you went from Penn State to Wall Street.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was kind of always the balance of what I wanted, was to participate in high-level athletics and to participate at a high level in the business world as well. So, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have the support staff to get 3 degrees at Penn State while I was playing. So I got 2 undergraduate degrees, and I was able to get my MBA at Penn State as well. So again, Penn State gave me the foundation and the tools and the skill set to really pursue what I wanted after. So with that, after I got my MBA, I was fortunate to sign a contract with, back then it was actually the St. Louis Rams, play there for a year. And then actually had 1 more year to finish up my MBA at Penn State. So came back, finish up that, and then just kind of reached out to the Penn State Alumni Network that I talked before, guys like, you know, John Schaefer, Matt Johnson, and just able to learn from them and kind of see what they did, see what I want to try and, you know, model my business path after, or do differently. So I was just thankful and fortunate that Penn State gave me the tools to succeed, and then gave me the network to learn from people and see the path that they went on also.
So you're involved with the New York City chapter, Mark. You've attended the Hope Gala. You've helped raise money for that organization, that event. How did you get involved with that, and kind of maybe also speak a little bit to the power of the Penn State Alumni Network that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think that was nice. I mean, being at Penn State and playing at Penn State, it gives you a platform of, you know, you play on TV in front of millions of people, and you're fortunate to do, you know, podcasts like this one here, and just, you know, talk to other people and make a impact in, you know, things that you want to do. So just being with on it I was always participating in college in uplifting athletes as well, which was a charity foundation that was started at Penn State. And then, so I always just wanted to be involved in philanthropic activities, and I was able to do that with on. Obviously, Penn State's a huge network, a huge alumni association there. So, I mean, just anytime you have a chance to give back and to make a difference, it was something that I wanted to help out with.
Excellent. So, sorry, go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, just to kind of like follow up, like what has that experience been like with staying connected to Penn Staters and being part of the Alumni Association?
Well, I think that's what's nice, especially with the football team, is, I mean, Coach Paterno put the kind of the rule in place where all former players have a chance to come back to every home game to get a sideline pass and see each other and catch up. So obviously, you know, guys graduate, they move on, they have families, they move all around the country. But, you know, every game, guys come back, and you're able to catch up with different people, and you're able to see your teammates that you played with. And then from just a general alumni association, pretty much any business deal or client that you work with almost always has someone from Penn State, you know, on the team or at the company. And people know that, you know, Penn State people do things a certain way, hold themselves accountable, hold themselves to a very high standard. And that's always someone that you want to work with.
Mark, how often do you get back to Happy Valley to catch a game or to be around the team?
I always try and go back to the whiteout game. I mean, obviously that's always a fun atmosphere, always a big time game. So I always try and go back to the whiteout game.
All right, so we always, you know, ask our guests, you know, what's the prediction for Saturday, Mark? But, you know, you can speak from a player's perspective. So if you're in that locker room on Saturday, you're 5-0, you're ranked number 4, top 5 matchup at Kinnick. What are you telling the guys next to you in the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell them that we've already won. We've prepared all year long, all week long. We've done everything that we needed to do. Now it's time to go out, execute, and whoop their butt.
I think I'm ready to go. I'm ready to run
There we
through
go.
run out of that pink locker room in Iowa City and go out and beat the Hawkeyes. Mark, hey, thank you so much for joining us on Football Letter Live. Always good to catch up with you and keep having that impact that you're having through your career and on all the alumni that you work with in New York City.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Go on.
John, always good to catch up with Mark, doing some great things with the New York City chapter and Hope Gala. And boy, I mean, he looks like he could, get out there and coach too with kind of the just get out there and beat their butts.
Yeah, really good guy. I mean, we could have ended up talking with him. I mean, we certainly didn't cover everything that he's, involved in. I could say that, for a lot of, the guests that we've had on, I think we're going to have him on again just to be able to have an opportunity to have him talk about, kind of like, his involvement, because, he's going to continue to do great things on behalf of Penn State. And, there's great, obviously, bright future now, even brighter future ahead now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, another good show, some great guests. Thank you to Herb and Mark for joining us. Let's go ahead and bring our producer onto the show, Vincent Langaro. Vincent, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Paul. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
How are you,
a lot of great things going on the blog. I see you have your game preview out there. What should we expect on Saturday in Iowa City?
I think Herb hit the nail on the head. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. I think these games always seem like that with Iowa and Penn State, and I think offensively for Penn State, it's about not turning the ball over. Iowa turns the opponents over probably more than anyone in the country right now, and that's what they thrive on. So I would say Penn State's offense, the key is not to turn the ball over, because once you turn the ball over and you give that Iowa offense a short field, they've been pretty efficient with it.
Absolutely. Look, we have players on this team that have gone to Iowa City and won a football game, right? And I was reading on the internet about every time Iowa's favored by 4 or less points at home, they whatever. Don't give me trends on Vegas lines, right? Give me what you've done before. I think it's going to be an epic matchup between two great defenses. But I think our players have the confidence to go into that tough environment and win. And I think we come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, several players, were on the 2019 team, Sean Clifford included. So they know what it's like going in there for a stripe out, the wave, that one of the best tradition in college sports. They know what the atmosphere is all about. So there's a lot of players and veterans on this team that are going to know what they're walking into. But I agree with you, Paul. I think these players are really confident. Not that Iowa's aren't, but I think there's just an aura about this team that it seems pretty special. And I agree with Herb. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Penn State comes out with the win as well. And I'm not being biased. I would generally say that if I wasn't a fan of either team.
That's all right. We wouldn't bring you on if you were going to say something different, though. So
that's true. If I said I was going to win this game by 10, we'd get a lot of hate messages in the comments right now. So yeah, I guess I didn't have much of a choice.
That's exactly right. John, this will be the first time that we're in Iowa City for a game that starts in the afternoon. Both of the times we were, at least the last 2 times I was there, they were night games. Special environment at night in Kinnick Stadium. This game will end at night. But again, a great opportunity after the game to go to Iowa City, which is a great college town. Go to the airliner maybe and get the big airliner sandwich that they have there. I'm looking forward to this trip. Vince hit on it. The great tradition that the wave is, turning around and waving to the kids in the children's hospital there. You've experienced it. It's more emotional than you might think. It's a moving experience.
Yeah, no doubt it is. It's special. It's unique to Iowa. And look, Penn State players, they've joined in the tradition. They've waved at the hospital. It's, it is emotional. A 4 p.m. kick, 3 p.m. local time, like that's not a small note. I think that's going to, look, I think when it's a night game, Penn State thrives on the road. Like there's no, you just naturally kind of get up for those games when it's a night game. But certainly I think, 3 o'clock local kick, the fans have a little less time to enjoy themselves before kick. But by the time we get to the second half, it's going to be a default night game. And But yeah, Vince was right. Like the players in the locker room, they've been in this situation before. They've gone into Kinnick.
Yeah. Yeah, some sound issues on John's side, but yeah, our players have gone into Kinnick. My question is going to be, who's the hero going to be? Who's going to be the Saquon Barkley leaping over the Iowa player? Who's going to be Juwan Johnson in the last moments of the game, right? Who's going to be Sean Clifford coming up with big plays last time we were out there? It's another opportunity for a Penn Stater to write their name into Penn State football lore.
I think the name to know for me is Parker Washington. I think Iowa's going to make it a point to try to limit Jahan Dotson as much as they possibly can. So I think Parker Washington played a good number of snaps these past 2 seasons. He's probably the second, leading receiver on the team this year. I think he's going to have a big day, and I think this is going to be one of his, breakout performances on the season and for his young career.
Absolutely. On the defensive side of the ball, I'd look at Joey Porter too. Joey Porter, big interception last game. If the defense is going to be, the MVP, I think Joey Porter is a name that's in the talks there. A lot of guys to choose from though on that side of the ball.
Yeah, Jesse Lucetta is a guy who's just always around the ball. I mean, Joey Porter Jr. too. He kind of reminds me of Garrett Taylor. Like he was just always around when the ball was in the air, always making the plays. Of course, you've got Jaquan Brisker, and of course, they made the stops in Wisconsin. And so, yeah, it's not. Look, it's something to embrace. It's an opportunity for somebody to, to kind of like etch their name in the lore at Penn State and going into Kinnick. And so, yeah, it's somebody will step up. The question is who.
Yeah, look, a defensive back's best friend are those defensive ends, right, who put the pressure on the quarterback and make them make bad decisions. But, Jesse Lucetta, how about that guy? We have had unbelievable defensive ends just over the last 5 years come out of Penn State, right? And this is a guy who is probably the least heralded of that group and is having as much, if not more, impact than some of the guys who've come before him. No disrespect to those players who are now off in the NFL playing on Sunday, but Jesse Lucetta is a guy who's taking advantage of the opportunities that he's been presented here in his final year at Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, his athleticism. I mean, think about look at Micah Parsons in the NFL playing different positions. I mean, when you've got that athletic ability, that helps, but also you need to know, the defense in and out. If you're going to switch positions, what are the different assignments? What's the different mentality? Yeah, absolutely. And just an awesome guy to root for. I've talked with him a lot of times. I'm officially starting the Arnold Ebiketie fan club. I should have started it weeks ago. I've talked with him after the game numerous times, a senior transfer from Temple, defensive end, probably going to.
Yeah. Arnold's he's definitely become a fan favorite. People enjoy not only what he's doing on the field, but kind of the personality and the flavor that he brings off the field. Well, look, I'm looking forward to the trip. I know, John, you're going to be going out there with us. I'm looking forward to having some fun on the road once again. But before we do that, a lot of Penn Staters are going to stick around, right? They are not going to go out to Iowa City. It's a tough place to get to, but they're going to try to find fellow Penn Staters to watch the game with. If you're in that situation, go to our website at alumni.psu.edu. Check out our chapters pages. Find a chapter that's in your neighborhood and go watch the game with fellow Penn Staters. Upwards of 150 chapter game watches going on all around the country this weekend. And there's one for you where you can go and celebrate with other Penn Staters. John, what can we expect coming up on next week's Football Letter Live?
We'll have the recap from Iowa. We'll have a couple, more great guests on. We're actually on a bye week next week, but we are not taking a bye. We are going to be back on the show next week. We've got Gary Gilliam, who was actually on the show last year. And again, we've had Letterman come on this year. We've said we didn't cover enough with him. We want to have him on again. We're doing it with Gary. He was on last year, going to have him on again. And also Jake Strom, president of the Mount Alto Alumni Society chapter. But also a Paralympian. Just you talk about success with honor, just another awesome story with. So Gary Gilliam, Jake Strom, and we'll be talking about the big win over Iowa.
Absolutely. Check your inbox on Saturday for the Saturday edition of the Football Letter. It'll have the replay of this show to get you ready for the 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern matchup against Iowa. And then Monday, you get to read John Black and his description of the game, and you get to enjoy the wonderful photos that Steve Manuel takes at every game. So look for the football letter in your inbox on Saturday and Monday, and we will see you back here Thursday next week. As John said, we're not taking a week off. The players get to rest, but Football Letter Live continues into next week. Thank you all for joining us and all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.